Today, I am poking the hornet's nest and talking about video game pricing, but not just video game pricing as a whole. I want to specifically focus on Nintendo remakes, remasters, ports, deluxes, whatever you want to call them, because these two games in particular, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, and especially Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon or Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, those two games have been causing a lot of discussions in the Nintendo community, so today I want to try to tackle this from every angle. Are these games overpriced? Is Nintendo justified in pricing them at $60? And of course, if you are new here and you enjoy Nintendo Switch speculation, theories, discussions, all of that fun stuff, I would appreciate you subscribing. I also launched channel memberships today. Not a big deal. If you want to support me, you can. If not, no big deal. I still love you anyway. But with all that said, let's get into it. Are Nintendo's remakes and remasters overpriced? Today, I wanted to have kind of an open-ended discussion on this topic because, you know, you're probably not going to agree with me. I'll just say that right now. You're probably not going to agree with me because I'll tell you right now that I personally don't think that they're overpriced. But that's fine. You know, I want to hear other perspectives on this in the comments down below because there's been so much discussion about Luigi's Mansion 2 HD specifically being $60 when that game originally cost $40. But it's not just that game, because I feel like every time Nintendo re-releases a game, there's always a lot of conversation about whether or not they're scamming their fans. Is this highway robbery? Should they be charging, you know, $60 for Skyward Sword HD? Should they be charging $50 for Mario vs. Donkey Kong? Why was Metroid Prime remastered $40 when that's one of the best remasters they've ever done? And I guess the first thing I want to kind of cover here is Nintendo's different types of re-releases, remakes, remasters, all of that, because they have a lot of different methods, it feels like, and you know, kind of naming conventions for when they re-release a game based on what I imagine is what they see as the value being offered in the package. So mostly covering the Switch era here, you know, back in like 2017, 2018, we were getting a lot of Wii U ports, but a lot of them just was like the original game and that's it. Like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze was $60, and that was it. They added the new funky mode, but it wasn't a deluxe, it wasn't a definitive edition. They just called it Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Same thing with Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, same thing with Bayonetta 1 and 2. But then we also have a lot of deluxes from Nintendo, like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which added a lot of new content. We had Pokken Tournament Deluxe, which added new characters. Even more recently, we just had Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, which added a ton of new content and is frankly basically a remake of Kirby's Return to Dreamland. I don't know why they called that one Deluxe. But then they also used the Definitive Edition tag quite a bit with Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, which was all of the content from the Wii U and 3DS version smashed together with a little bit more content. But then there was also Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, which was a full remake of Xenoblade Chronicles, or, you know, at least arguably a full remake in some areas of that game in terms of models and stuff, right? So that doesn't really check out. But then you have their actual, like, full-on remakes, like unquestionable, this is a remake, like Link's Awakening, or Mario vs. Donkey Kong, or Super Mario RPG. These are undeniably remakes, and they just title them the same title as the original game, kind of like some of the Wii U ports we got early on. And for those full remakes, like Link's Awakening, Mario RPG, Mario vs. Donkey Kong, right? Like, I'm totally fine with paying full price for those. For me, I would much rather, you know, if we're gonna bring emulation into this, you know, conversation, I would much rather Nintendo offer me another option to buy this game on a modern platform with, you know, fully remade, you know, assets, some tweaked gameplay mechanics, some new content in a lot of these cases. I would much rather them do that than just put the ROM up on the eShop for like 10, 20 bucks. I would much rather have the option to play this game in a more beautiful way than we've ever had before. That's half the appeal of a remake. So when I see people complaining about the pricing for Thousand Year Door right now, I'm just like, what did you want them to do? I have seen some people say, like, oh, they should just have GameCube Switch Online and it should be included in that. Or, oh, they should just put it up on the eShop for $20 and not change anything. And I'm just like, that is the most boring possible thing for them to do. Why would you not want them to go back and remake this game from the ground up with completely new assets, lighting, all of that stuff, new, you know, redone music, everything, potentially new content? Why would you not prefer them doing that than just putting the game you can already play on your, you know, PC through emulation or on your GameCube if you have an original copy? A remake is going to win 10 times out of 10 in my book. Like, that is so much more enticing as a potential buyer for, you know, this product. I've played Thousand Year Door before. I want to play it again, but even better than I remember. And the same thing goes for something like Link's Awakening or even Mario vs. Donkey Kong, right? These are Game Boy games that got remade for full price, but I'm fine with that because, once again, I don't want to play these games on Game Boy or even on an emulator, running them when they look like Game Boy games. Those games are great, but come on, man. Link's Awakening is one of the best looking Switch games. I'm fine with paying $60 for that. Then there's also the whole side argument of like, oh, should Link's Awakening be $60 next to Breath of the Wild, which is also $60? And at that point, man, it's really up to your perceived value of like, do you prefer 2D Zelda or 3D Zelda or just 2D games versus 3D games? But for me, I'm fine with paying full price for a very high quality remake that does everything from the ground up. And since I mentioned all of the Wii U ports we've gotten, I guess I'll mention that again. I personally bought them because I'm a Nintendo fan and I wanted to play these games again on the Switch, being able to play, Mario Kart 8 and Tropical Freeze and Hyrule Warriors on the go. That was very enticing to me. I can see why that wouldn't be exciting for a lot of people that already bought them on Wii U for full price back, just a couple years before the Switch came out, and they wouldn't want to spend full price on those games. But you do have to understand, and I know people always bring this up and people always try to dispute it, and, this is definitely like the corporate side coming out. Like, this is me speaking from like a Nintendo perspective, like if I am Nintendo here. The Wii U sold very poorly. Most people didn't even know those games existed. They can get away with it. And I know that's such a wacky thing to say, oh, they can get away with it, but it's true. Nintendo games are so high quality. You look at all of the garbage coming out, especially from Western AAA companies, and it's just like, yeah, I think most people are going to be thrilled to spend $60 on new Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, even if that's one of the worst ports, remasters, whatever you want to call it, Nintendo's ever done, because it's still higher quality and more polished than most of what is coming out of AAA gaming these days. Which now leads me to their more basic remasters, specifically Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which I just want to say this now, Luigi's Mansion 1, my favorite game of all time. I adore that game. Luigi's Mansion 2, I actually really don't like that game. I'm excited to try it again and maybe I'll enjoy it this time, but I sincerely do not like Dark Moon, and I'm still gonna go up to bat for it here because people are really upset that this basic remaster is gonna be $60 when the original version was $40. Now, first of all, I just want to say inflation is a thing. I do want to say that $40 in 2013 is over 50 now, so you can make the argument this should be 50, okay. But I would still make the argument that it is higher quality than most other games releasing in 2024, which just goes back to the whole perceived value thing. People buy Nintendo games at $60 because they think they're worth that. To most people, $60 is a fine price for a Nintendo first-party game, and that's why Nintendo doesn't really lower their prices that often. I do want to, dispute that for a second, though. People always say, oh, Nintendo never, discounts their games. Man, every single Mario game was $40 this week. It's not 50% off. It's not 80% off like Sony does for God of War a year after release. You can't go into GameStop and buy Luigi's Mansion 3 5 years after release for $10, but they still do go on sale. I do want to dispute that. People always say, oh, these games don't go on sale. They literally all do. But then the question will come up, well, why is Luigi's Mansion 2 HD $60 when it looks like a pretty basic remaster when Metroid Prime Remastered is only $40? And once again, coming from the corporate side here, the corporate think, that is because Nintendo knows what their fans will buy and their consumers will buy. Metroid Prime Remastered, we haven't played Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, but based on what we've seen, Metroid Prime Remastered is a much more impressive remaster than Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. However, it's Metroid, guys. Nintendo didn't price that game at $40 out of the kindness of their hearts, wanting to give you a really good deal on a Metroid remaster that'll blow your minds. They priced it at that price point because Metroid games don't sell well. The reason Luigi's Mansion 2 HD is priced at $60 is because, as of right now, currently, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD will probably be Nintendo's best-selling game this year from what they have announced. People seem to not know how well Luigi's Mansion sells. I actually did a poll like a week ago asking, what do you think will sell better, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD or Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door? Fellas, it's not even going to be a close. This is going to be a full wash. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD is probably going to sell 6 to 8 million copies. The highest selling Paper Mario game is Super Paper Mario, and I think that sold like 4 million, maybe? For comparison, and I'll put it up here, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon sold 6.5 million copies on the 3DS. It's one of the best-selling 3DS games. Luigi's Mansion 3 on the Switch sold almost 14 million copies. That is almost more than every Paper Mario game ever made combined. It is a substantially more popular franchise. But even still, for me personally, like I said with the full-on remakes we get, even something like Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, I would rather have the option to spend full price on this game and have a remastered version, that looks better than anything you could have done on Citra. It undeniably does. People always say, oh, you can run Pokemon X and Y on your Citra emulator and get rid of the scan lines and run it in 4K and it looks just as good as a Switch game. No, it doesn't. While it isn't the most impressive remaster they've ever done, you can tell there was a decent amount of work put into Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, and as someone who owns it on 3DS, I don't want to play it on my 3DS again. I want to play it on my 4K TV, not in 4K because Nintendo got a Nintendo, but I want to play it in, you know, HD. I'm not going to play it on my 240p 3DS screen again. I just feel like there's a lot of entitlement when it comes to Nintendo fans, but also just gamers in general when it comes to the pricing of video games. This is a luxury hobby. I understand that it sucks that if you can't afford a game, but they are a luxury item. You don't need a Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. If they want to charge $60 for it, if they think people will buy it for $60 and that it'll sell well at that price point, then why wouldn't they charge $60 for it? Would I prefer if this game was releasing at $50, $40, $30, $20? Yeah, of course. Cheaper game equal good. I want to spend less money on game if I can, but I understand why they're charging $60 for it. Nintendo's one of the few major publishers that actually has a pretty dynamic pricing structure for their first-party games, and it all comes back to what I was saying about Metroid Prime Remastered. It depends on what they think people will buy. Metroid Prime Remastered was $40 because Metroid games don't sell well. They never have. Mario vs. Donkey Kong was sold at $50 because the Mario vs. Donkey Kong games have never really sold that well. Remember right before E3 2021 when Nintendo sent out that poll to some people's emails asking if they would pay $50 for a new WarioWare game on Switch? Why isn't WarioWare $60? The answer is that WarioWare doesn't sell that well, which is why they price it below $60. But there's a reason that Skyward Sword HD and Luigi's Mansion 2 HD and like Xenoblade and Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, there's a reason they price these games at $60, the same as their new games. It's because they sell like new games. Nintendo's first-party games sell incredibly well because they are extremely high quality. And if it doesn't sell well, well, that means it's overpriced. I mean, just a couple of, you know, Nintendo examples. You look back to that $25 Zelda and Loftwing amiibo they released back with Skyward Sword HD. That clearly did not sell well because GameStop was selling them for $5. You look at something like Sushi Striker being priced at $50. That game is in stock on Amazon for like $10, I'm pretty sure. And then if you want to talk about other publishers, I mean, people do vote with their wallets. We see this happen a lot these days. Skull and Bones is a game that probably would have sold pretty well back in like 2015, but people aren't putting up with Ubisoft's crap anymore. They launched that game at $70 and it completely bombed. There's also the entire time is money angle. I think for a lot of people that aren't on the internet, right, in this gaming discussion bubble, I think for a lot of people, they look at a Nintendo first-party game and they think, well, it's a Nintendo first-party game. It has Luigi on the cover. It's going to be a high-quality game. They don't have to go and see, oh, is this live service Suicide Squad game going to be good? And then are the servers going to be shut down in a few months? No, they just know it's a Nintendo game. The Nintendo branding on a product means that at some inherent level, it is a quality product, not counting Scarlet and Violet. Which I think also is why remakes and remasters have become so prominent now, when, you know, 15 years ago, they weren't really that big of a deal. They weren't everywhere. People want to buy what they're comfortable with. They want to buy a game that they know will be good in quality based on who's, you know, publishing it. And in this case, if it has a Nintendo character on it, it's probably going to be good. But also in the case of remasters and remakes, they want to buy a game that maybe they've already played and they just already know they like it. $60 to $70 is a lot of money. And I think for a lot of people, they would rather buy that proven known entity than, you know, have to worry about something like Immortals of Avium coming out and being like, oh, well, this game kind of looks interesting, but then the reviews weren't that great. But also it's an EA game and their games go on sale very quickly. So I'll just stick to my Nintendo lane and, you know, buy this game that, once again, maybe I already played it. Or if not, you know, I know it's a Nintendo game. It's probably going to be pretty good. I'll just stick with that because there is a precedent for quality there. It's a very interesting topic, in my opinion. I already know most people watching this are not going to agree with me. I'm going to get called a Nintendo bootlicker. I get it. And once again, you know, I can look at Luigi's Mansion 2 HD and think, yeah, I wish it was a little bit cheaper. But, you know, I'm not gonna, you know, raise my pitchfork and go to Twitter. It's still a high-quality game, even if I didn't particularly love it back in the day. I know it's, you know, a high-quality game that a lot of people do love. I got a lot of comments on my, you know, kind of negative reaction to its announcement back in September, being like, no, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon is the best one. I love this game when I was younger. I'm so happy they're remaking it or remastering it, right? While I wish it was cheaper, I'm not gonna, you know, raise my pitchforks over it being, you know, $10, maybe $15, $20 more than what the ideal price point would have been. In my opinion, I think the cheapest they could have done was $50. That would make more sense, maybe. But we also, maybe there's more content. Who knows? There's a lot we don't know about this remaster. I feel like they haven't really shown that much of it, but that's just speculation. So yeah, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this video, but it's something that I've been thinking about a lot ever since the pre-orders went up for these games on GameStop, and a lot of people expected Dark Moon to be only like 40 or 50, and I was surprised by the reaction to that, because when they announced it, I was like, yeah, this is going to be full price. It's Luigi's Mansion. Luigi's Mansion 3 is one of the best-selling Switch games. Why wouldn't they charge $60 for it? And of course, if you did enjoy this video, I would appreciate you subscribing for more Nintendo Switch discussions, theory, speculation, all of that stuff. You can follow me on Twitter at BotoxGames. You can join my Discord that is linked down below. And until next time, folks, peace!